I believe we would have had faster growth last year if we had not had the tariffs. On the other hand, he is a master negotiator. He knows the art of the deal.
Now, President Trump has threatened to impose fresh tariffs on a handful of European countries that have opposed the US's takeover of Greenland. And it's been met with criticism from UK politicians. Here's Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy speaking to Adam Bolton on Times Radio earlier today.
We think there are serious challenges in the Arctic region which need to be addressed. They pose challenges not just to the UK and the US, but to Canada and to the rest of Europe as well. And we need to work together in order to resolve them. It's why the Home Secretary has just been over in North Norway, working with the Norwegians to double the number of Marines that we have there over the next 3 years and working on a new fleet. We need to be working together at this moment. We think these tariffs are completely wrong, and the future of Greenland is a matter for the people of Greenland and the people of the Kingdom of Denmark to determine, not anybody else.
EU ambassadors have been summoned for an emergency meeting in Brussels today in response to Donald Trump's tariff threats. Broadcaster Nina Dos Santos, former Europe editor at CNN, joins me now. Nina, what's been the response so far from European leaders?
Hi, thanks so much, Dom. Well, there's a different response from different countries, and that is also because this set of tariffs that Donald Trump has talked about won't affect all of those EU countries. So there's big countries like France that are urging the EU to use their big bazooka, as it's called. This is something called the anti-coercion instrument that's never been used before, but essentially means that it'll force all of the 27 member states to see eye to eye and to act in tandem to try and protect themselves against these tariffs, to immediately identify tariff coercion by the United States, engage in dialogue, and then perhaps even if necessary start to curb the import of American goods. But as I said before, it's never been used and not everybody is in agreement. Giorgia Meloni is somebody who's tried to sort of be the Donald Trump whisperer in the past. Her country hasn't been put on the list for these tariffs that have been floated over Greenland. She says she's already spoken to the US president and says she believes that his talk of using economic coercion to grab Greenland is a mistake. But on the other hand, she's also tempered her comments by saying, well, look, it may be that this is just another big misunderstanding. So there's already some division, but what they're having today at about 5 p.m. Brussels time, 4 p.m. UK time, is an early meeting, an urgent one, though, between those 27 representatives of all of the countries at a diplomatic level. So the diplomats will be talking first. And that'll, of course, lay the groundwork for a more coherent message coming from some of the member states' leaders later on, hopefully.
Trump whisperer. Imagine that as a job. I don't think Keir Starmer's ever been a Trump whisperer, but he had a go, and it's a tricky position for him, isn't it? He's often been praised for his positive relationship with Donald Trump, whispering or not. How's he going to deal with it?
Yeah, the UK is in a really difficult position here because obviously the Prime Minister here, who is not terribly popular at home, has spent a lot of time on the international stage trying to avoid the fact that he's unpopular at home and show that he's at least got Donald Trump on his side and managed to be able to, negotiate some of the more difficult trade tariff details that the EU has faced from Donald Trump more deftly. But the UK has been put on this list. By the way, Dom, I should point out, it's several EU countries and also the UK that's not inside the EU. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, as I said before, and Finland. And the reason that coincidentally these countries have been identified is because they are part of those countries that sent troops in a symbolic fashion in the last couple of days to Greenland to show that Europe is committed to defending Greenland, both from the Russians and the Chinese, who Donald Trump claims want to grab Greenland. Lots of people say there's no evidence for that at the moment, but also potentially to have to reinforce its defences if Donald Trump himself wants to grab it either via economic means or militarily as well. So those are the countries that are on the line for these 10% tariffs that could come in within the next 2 weeks' time. And they could be ratcheted up to 25% tariffs for those specific countries thereafter if no one sees eye to eye.
Thank you very much, Nina Dos Santos, their former Europe editor at CNN. Now bringing in Stephen Moore, a senior economic advisor to Donald Trump during the election campaign, and also the author of The Trump Economic Miracle. Stephen, welcome to the show. What do you make of these new tariffs?
Well, I think they've caught everybody by surprise. This was just announced a day or two ago, and everyone's still trying to figure out what Trump's endgame is here. It's no surprise that for the last year or so, he's been talking about uh, making Greenland part of the United States. He believes it's very important for America's strategic defense to ensure that, as you were just saying, that the issue is whether China or Russia might make a play at Greenland. So we will see. But this is sort of classic Trump, where he uses the threat of tariffs for better or worse for objectives he has that he thinks are in America's either economic or national security interest. And I'll just say one other thing, that Trump is basically saying, hey, this is important for Europe as well, and we want to use this land as a hub for providing defense for not just the United States but Europe as well.
I mean, they've already got the land, though, haven't they? That's the problem. They've already got the base there. There is
True.
there's a term called TACO, isn't there? Trump often makes these big claims, tariffs and threats, and then he backs down. And the term TACO stands for Trump always chickens out. It's been coined. So how seriously should all this be taken? Are we going to expect a TACO?
I've never really understood that. I mean, I understand what the acronym stands for, but Trump has used tariffs and by the way, I'm not a big fan of tariffs personally, but he has used tariffs as a means to advance America's economic interests. He believes that for example, he believes that the Europeans have not been paying their fair share for NATO costs, et cetera. So I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to explain how his mind works here, that he believes this is he actually believes that this is in the interest of the United States, but also of Europe, because it is true, we would not want Greenland to fall into the hands of China or Russia.
I'm always very happy when someone tries to explain to me what Donald Trump's thinking. What do you think Trump's long-term thinking is here, and what is the short-term?
He believes as we move, further into the 21st century, the political impact of Greenland, which is really a country nobody's really ever really focused on, is going to be increasingly important. I mean, remember, just for the history's sake, that the United States bought Alaska over 100 years ago, and that has been of strategic importance to the United States. So I think he views Greenland the same way Americans viewed Alaska over a century ago, of strategic importance for the country.
Yeah, but the bit I don't understand is they've already got they've got the bases there. They are there. They've even taken,
right.
If they were so concerned, why did they remove bases? Why did they take some of your military out? I just don't get it.
Well, look, I'm not a military expert, so I can't answer that question. I'm an economist. I'm simply saying that his modus operandi has been to use tariffs to advance American objectives.
Sure.
Whether this makes sense from a security standpoint, that's for other people to determine.
Okay,
but,
so
and by the way, Trump, he may just be he doesn't chicken out. He uses the tariffs as a way to advance his his economic
focus minds, do you think? Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you think so? Economically, do you think this will hurt the US in any way?
Look, I believe that the Europeans and Trump should sit down and come up with some agreement where our security needs are met. And incidentally, this is part of NATO. I mean, he believes that the United States having a bigger military presence in Greenland would be in all of our interests. He's talking about the dome, the ability to use this area to prevent nuclear weapons from being used, et cetera.
So Trump is going to meet up with all the leaders at Davos.
Right.
I mean, do you think the tariffs certainly are a sort of an opener? And what do you think is the most likely outcome from Davos? What do you think they will reach an agreement?
Hard to say. You never can tell with Trump, but maybe he's bluffing, maybe he's not. Those tariffs have been imposed in the past year or so, and so I wouldn't if I were the Europeans, I wouldn't guarantee or believe that he is just bluffing on this. And he has imposed tariffs on many countries around the world, as high as 50%. So I would, if I were the Europeans, I'd try to come up with a deal with Trump.
How successful do you think tariffs have been for Donald Trump?
That's a great question. They clearly have, in ways, hurt American economy. I believe we would have had faster growth last year if we had not had the tariffs. On the other hand, he is a master negotiator. He knows the art of the deal, and he has to use.
Even though he didn't write it.
Well, I'm not going to get into that, but I will say this: that in many ways, he has forced Japan, Korea, China, the Europeans, the UK to level the playing field. And the one thing, whether you like Donald Trump or not, it has been true that these other nations have imposed higher tariffs on the United States than we have on them. And Trump's objective was to get a better deal for the United States. And I think not always, but in many cases, Trump has achieved that.
So you were his senior economic advisor. You're the author of The Trump Economic Miracle. How do you rate Donald Trump as an economic mind?
Well, I mean, the United States economy is absolutely booming right now. We've seen incredible growth that has defied all of the economic expectations. I mean, if you look at all the world economists and the economists here at home, the so-called blue chip economists, they predicted the economy would grow at less than 2% last year. We had 3% in the third quarter, 4% in the third quarter, 5% in the quarter that just ended. We have a red hot economy where we are growing much faster than the rest of the world. So, if the proof of the pudding is in the eating, we have an incredibly strong economy right now.
So if the boot was on the other foot and you were advising the Europeans, what would you advise them to do in response to Trump and the tariffs?
I think Trump, other nations should look at what Trump has accomplished in his first year and say, hey, we ought to be doing what they're doing. Lower taxes.
Invade Greenland.
Less well, I'm not gonna endorse that policy, but I will say that, here at home, we feel we have a strong economy. And look, Trump, we don't want to be the world's we don't want to be the world's policeman. But on the other hand, look what's happened in Venezuela, which is a miracle. We liberated 30 million people without losing a single casualty. So for the most part, I think Americans are impressed with what Trump has accomplished. But sometimes Trump can be his own worst enemy as well. And this Greenland case might be one of those.
Yeah, well, if you take Greenland, we'll take Hawaii. I'm warning you now. We're gonna
hey, no deal.
We'll have a better deal. But anyway, thank you very much, Stephen Moore.
Thank you very much.
Stephen Moore joining me there, senior economic advisor Donald Trump, also author of the Trump Economic